and welcome to the Nebraska Writers Guild Author Chat Show. I'm Victorine, and tonight we have Faith Colburn on our show. Welcome to the show, Faith.
Hi, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I don't know where to start. I'm sixth generation Nebraska, and if that makes any difference, it certainly makes a difference in everything I write, because that is definitely in there. I've lived here for my whole life. I haven't done a whole lot of going anyplace else. So I've worked several positions in the state. I worked for the Game and Parks Commission for a number of years. So I got familiar with the land mass and the animals that live on it. And I worked for a Martin Luther Home Society, which provided services for people with developmental disabilities. And my last gig was with the University of Nebraska at the Research and Extension Center here in North Platte.
Wonderful. That's awesome. So I recently saw on social media that you have a book that won an award. Can you tell us about that?
It did. In fact, this week the awards are being presented virtually on the Nebraska Library Commission site, and it is the Book Award for Fiction for Nebraska.
Oh, wow. And how did that come about?
Well, you send the book in, and then you wait for people to decide whether your book has earned any awards. The book that won was See Willie See. It's my most recent novel. And it's set in World War II, so it's kind of a war novel, but it's really more about family than it is about a war.
Ah, I see. Okay. And when did you publish this book?
It was published last November, so it's almost a year old.
Nice. And tell us about what it's about.
My main character is Connor Conroy, excuse me. And he is in Nebraska after wandering around during the Depression, being a hobo, and there are some flashbacks to that. But in the first scene, he's thinking about his sister, who has been with the embassy in Paris just as the Germans are invading. So he's really worried that she's going to get killed. And he finally decides that maybe he should enlist because he thinks he'll get sent to Europe and maybe he can look out for his sister. And the trouble is he doesn't, you don't allow that to happen in a novel. So I sent him to the Southwest Pacific, and I put him into a real unit. And I chose that unit because it was the unit my father served with, and I had done all the research already, and you don't want to throw anything away. So I made up a platoon and put it in George Company in the 158th Regimental Combat Team. And the reason I chose that unit, besides the fact that I'd already done the research, is that it was a very diverse unit. It was made up of the Arizona National Guard. And so there were 22 Native American tribes represented, and there were Hispanics, and there were a few white guys in it too. So I got to write about some really diverse people as well.
Oh, fantastic. And what made you dive into this subject?
I guess it started when I was doing my memoir and writing about my dad and mom. And when you're a kid, it never occurs to you your parents had lives before you were born. So it gave me a chance to explore what their lives were like when I was doing that memoir, family memoir. And then when I came out of that, there was just all this wonderful material yet to work with, that I could do things with families. See Willie See is the second in a trilogy of books about basically two families. The first book is one family, the second is the other family. They're very, very different, and then I'm going to throw them together and see how it works out. And I just wanted to explore how families affect the way we survive trauma.
So interesting. So how many novels have you written?
This is my second novel. This is my fifth book, but my second novel.
Oh, okay. Okay. What are the other ones?
The first one is called Threshold, and it's that family memoir that I was talking about. And that one starts in, the first date is 1751. And so it's a series of 22 stories, short stories about members of my family, starting again with 1751 with a great however many greats, uncle, who was captured by the Shawnee in 1751 and lived with them for 9 years before he came back to the white society. And then the second one is about my, excuse me, my great-great-great-grandmother, who was the first in Nebraska and who was a midwife and a folk healer and homesteaded with her family here in Nebraska. And then it goes on from there through several generations, including my nephew, who lost his leg in 1993 in a shooting accident to a surgeon who did surgery he wasn't qualified to do. So one of the things I wanted to talk about in that book was medicine.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And then the next book was a history of the Seacrest family, the people who had the newspaper in Lincoln for 100 years. And so it was a history basically of that newspaper and the family that owned it. The third one was just basically the best of my blog for several years, and I called it Prairie Landscapes. And then, of course, the two novels.
Oh, wonderful. So See Willie See is your latest novel.
Right.
Do you have something else in the works?
I do. I'm working on the third in that trilogy that I was talking about, where I put the two families together. So I just rewrote the first chapter for about the 15th time or so. I haven't been able to get myself satisfied, but I think I finally got what I wanted, so I can go on now.
Good.
It's all drafted, but it's just a matter of doing the revisions.
Oh, revision. So how long does it take you usually to write a book?
Years.
Years?
Usually a couple, 3 years.
Okay. So are you a plotter? Do you have everything all figured out before you start?
With this trilogy, I started out thinking it was going to be one book, and I drafted scenes for the whole 3 books, and then it just got so big that I had to divide it up. And so I started out with, it wasn't an outline, it was just a series of scenes that kind of went in the order I needed to, which would have been chronological order. As it turned out, I have reordered scenes and done flashbacks and a lot of other stuff as I've done the rewriting and revising.
Yes. And I assume you do a ton of research when you do your books, because
I do. My first book, that Threshold family memoir I was talking about, was my master's thesis at UNK, and I received their Outstanding Thesis of the Year award almost as much on the research as it was on the writing of the book.
Wow, that is fantastic. So where do you find your resources to do your research?
Well, the military stuff, I found an awful lot of stuff on the Center for Military History, which is online, and it's pretty easy to search. I came pretty close to being able to find the morning reports, which are the daily outlines of what's going on with a particular unit in a particular place. But I also found only two, but I found a couple of memoirs written by guys that were in that unit. So I could follow them through the whole war. I did not take my character through the whole war, but I was able to follow those characters, or follow the unit through the war, so I could put them in actual battles.
Oh, how interesting. We have a question from someone on Facebook. They are wondering, how much time do you devote to writing?
I'll be honest, I have been in what I call a purple funk for the last 6 months, and I'm just getting back to it. But usually I try to spend 3 or 4 hours a day.
Oh, yes. I've been in those purple funks before, so I totally get that.
Kind of nasty. I haven't done anything, so it's kind of embarrassing.
Well, there's a whole lot going on right now in the world, and that can mess with your head. Would you like to do a reading for us?
Sure. I'm going to go almost to the end of the book. One of the things I would say about it is, like, it's a war novel, but nobody gets into combat until almost 2/3 of the way through the book. This is what I call my climax scene. It's where everything kind of comes to a head. So it's August 1st, 1944. We're on Noam 4 Island in New Guinea. Connor had seen his fill of Noam 4, plodding through dripping jungle, not even sure what he was looking for. He had plenty of time to think. As he scanned the trees for snipers, he remembered the first slaves he had encountered. Naked or nearly naked people limping out of the jungle with their hands raised, smashed ankles dragging. Japs had used them to build their airfields. He still felt like retching thinking about them. There'd been a lot more on Nom for desperate, starving, crippled people. God, I'm tired. I can't keep focused on bad guys. Follow a man for miles by his bloody spoor. If you don't run your patrol into machine gun ambush or a sniper, then find him dead or near dead, eyes staring out of a naked skull, or he's lying curled up, shaking and teeth rattling while the canopy drips and drips and drips. Jungle probably cover him up in a week if his buddies don't find him and eat him. Let me interject here that by this time in the war, the Japanese were starving to death. They weren't as much an enemy as they might have been to begin with. And so there was a lot of cannibalism going on. Connor stared into masses of leaves, searching for a tiny bit of motion. The sniper who would leave him rotting on the jungle floor, molding and making food for more of the monstrous leaves that surrounded his patrol. He plodded on without direction or purpose. Just keep moving so the jungle don't eat me. Got to keep these guys alive. Surrounded by American GIs, he couldn't think of what to tell them, how to protect them. Pity for the enemy soldiers he'd been finding on the jungle floor overcame his reserve. He swiped the drip off his chin without realizing he'd wiped his own tears. You got to be sorry for the bastards. But then you see those little Japanese or Formosan men trying to walk on their wrecked feet. He felt another chill coming on, but he tried to keep moving, kept scanning. Lifting his feet became torture as a bone-cracking chill turned his stride into a marionette's jerk. His head felt like he'd been shot. He couldn't think. Random ideas popped into his head from nowhere. What does it matter anyway? Nothing matters. We'll just be out there walking around, looking for them walking dead men till we're dead ourselves. The jungle will grow over us and won't make no difference we ever lived. Won't make no difference if it's us or them getting growed over. Birds and monkeys will come back and chitter and howl over us. He smiled. Good for the birds and monkeys. His hands shook and he clenched his feet. Nope, no Jap bullets got my name on it. Just endless walking and walking and walking and seeing stuff I don't want to see. He lost track of time. He stopped. He'd lost his squad. He couldn't see or hear even one of the others. What the hell? He blundered through the undergrowth by himself for hours. Minutes? Who knew? He ran across a dead enemy with chunks sliced from the body, like roasts. He retched and stumbled on. His mother's words intruded on his thoughts. Try to remember that you're a human being. He found that harder to remember as he kept fighting. He penetrated deep into the jungle, listening and sniffing like a wolf. The dead man had overwhelmed his senses, making him stop and listen more often until he could smell again. He watched the canopy, looking for the sniper who would end him. He almost missed another body lying along the trail. To make sure the soldier was dead, he kicked it. The eyes opened. Connor flinched. He kicked again, savage blows to the ribs. The eyes never wavered, staring like they were staring into his soul. Remember, the man who's trying to kill you is a human being too. Even when his mom had said it, he'd thought she'd lost her mind. Starving and sick, the enemy shivered. Connor sat and pulled the dying enemy's head into his lap. There in the jungle dusk, he held the soldier, a man as helpless as he. He held the soldier until his breathing stopped. Then he walked on, leaving the jungle to consume the remains. He heard the clips on his rifle strap chattering. God, I gotta stop that noise. His last thought before he collapsed, curling up and shivering. No effort of will could straighten him up to walk. Through a haze, he vaguely heard Lopez and Sundermeyer talking, like the flies buzzing over his face. Must be losing my mind. Must be losing my mind. Is this what it feels like to die? He opened his eyes. The jungle appeared to swirl over him and he pressed his eyes shut. He felt like he floated. He heard whispering. Eagle? Deer? His brain drifted. He couldn't remember the names. Eagle, that's one. Something's wrong with him. He drifted under the swirling trees. Deer, is that a man? He shivered. teeth clenched. Baseball. I love baseball. There's something I can't remember about baseball, about pitching. He closed his eyes and drifted off.
Oh, that was very good, Faith. I always love the vivid pictures you paint with your words when I hear you read whatever you've written. You do such a good job with that. So do you have the book? You can show us what it looks like?
Oh, sure. Here we go.
Ah, wonderful.
And I haven't got the little certificates from the Library Commission yet, but this one is from Bookworks. I've become one of their featured authors, so that's another one of those things I'm kind of happy about.
That's wonderful. Great. Well, I have put up the links on where to buy the book on YouTube and on Facebook. So in the comments, if you're interested in learning more about Faith's book, you can click the link and run over to Amazon. Do you have a website?
I do have a website. It's https:// and then it's Prairie Wind Press, all one word, all lowercase, .us.
Awesome. I will put that up as well. Great. So people can click on that and get to your website. Is there any other things you want to talk about before we end?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Faith.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity.
And congratulations again on your award. That is fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Victory.
We are so happy that you have able to do that and get that recognition. It always feels good as a writer to get recognized, because a lot of what we do is just solitary work. And so when someone else reads it and finds value in it and recognizes that, it always feels really good. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we will say good night. And if anybody has any other questions for Faith, feel free to drop them on the comments and we'll try and get answers to you. Thank you so much for watching and have a good evening.
Bye.